Are you ready to be transported to an ancient city that defies gravity and belief? Prepare to be blown away as we take you on an awe-inspiring journey to Sigiriya, an ancient sky city in Sri Lanka that was built on top of a towering rock fortress. You'll be left speechless as we reveal the remarkable engineering and design that allowed this city to stand tall for over 1,500 years, defying the laws of physics and gravity. Stay with us until the end of this video as we uncover the hidden secrets and stories of Sigiriya that will lead you marveling at the ingenuity and creativity of our ancient ancestors. Don't miss out on this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to witness the incredible beauty and wonder of Sigiriya. This incredible ancient city is over 1,500 years old and located at a whopping 656 meters up a hill, which is 200 meters above the sea level, making it a fortified marvel that might have been built long before humans could construct houses. The city's structures are so well planned and thought out that experts say they should not have existed at the time of its construction. But here it stands, surrounded by lush gardens and forests, with pools of water and fountains on top of a 180-meter-high rock. And let's not forget the underground pathways and reservoirs that were simply too advanced for its time. Who built it? Sigiriya was not just a strategic fortress, but also a luxurious city that a king built for himself. It's an historical site with over 1 million visitors each year, but it's not surprising when you hear the fascinating story behind it. According to ancient texts from the revered Sri Lankan chronicles, King Kashyapa built Sigiriya during his reign between 473 to 495 AD. But here's where things get juicy. Before Kashyapa settled in Sigiriya and built his magnificent palace, he had to take the throne from his father in the most gruesome way possible. You see, Kashyapa was not the rightful heir to the throne. His father had another son named Moggallana, who was born to the queen and was the rightful heir. But Kashyapa wasn't having any of that. He was born to a mere concubine and had no claims to the throne, so he made sure his little brother wouldn't rule over him. So what did he do? He plotted a coup to overthrow his father, King Detusena, who was still sitting on the throne at the time. Talk about sibling rivalry. The coup. With the help of the commander of the king's army, Magira, Kashyapa carried out the coup successfully and became the new king in the year 483. But wait, it gets better, or worse depending on who you ask. Kashyapa thought his father had hidden away large stashes of wealth, only to find out that it was just a massive reservoir of water to ensure that the people and their farmland had enough water for generations to come. Oops, someone didn't do their homework. Feeling disappointed and probably a bit embarrassed, Kashyapa had his father murdered in the most gruesome way possible, by burying him alive behind a wall. Yikes, that's cold-blooded. Meanwhile, Moggallana, the rightful heir to the throne, was living in fear of being assassinated by his own brother, so he fled to India to escape his brother's wrath. But like a true hero, Moggallana vowed to return and claim his throne one day. God-given. Anticipating his brother's inevitable attack and retaliation, Kashyapa moved his palace to the more secure summit of Sigiriya, where he started building what would become the most advanced architectural palace in Sri Lanka. Over the course of his 22-year reign, Kashyapa turned Sigiriya into a fortified oasis filled with pleasure palaces, ridiculously advanced water flow systems, and architectural symmetries that still baffle architects today. Legend has it that the gods themselves had a hand in building this incredible palace city. Sigiriya, which means lion rock, is a sight to behold. One of the most striking features is the lion entrance that leads the way to the top of the rock, but that's not all. There's also a large display of lifelike drawings and paintings on the western face of the rock. These paintings depict partially dressed women in various styles and activities. Ooh la la. While most of the paintings have been lost over time, some can still be found elsewhere on the rock, like in the Cobra Hood Cave. The styles and applications of the paintings are incredibly unique, and the women's true identities remain a mystery. But hey, maybe they were just wives and concubines of King Kashyapa who hung out in the pleasure palaces. Who knows? Regardless of who these women were, the sheer opulence and beauty of Sigiriya make it a sight that everyone should see at least once in their lifetime. The mirror wall. Now let us tell you about a special type of wall. It's not your typical wall made of bricks, oh no. This one was covered in polished white plaster. So much so, the king could see his reflection in it. Can you imagine checking yourself out on a wall every time you walked by? Talk about being a narcissist. But wait, there's more. Over the centuries, visitors and nomads alike have scribbled poems and verses on the mirror wall, and we're not talking about any ordinary poems here, folks. Some date back to the 8th century and are filled with rhymes, puns, and even sarcasm. And who wrote these poems, you ask? Well, just about anyone and everyone. From high-ranking officials to poets, artisans, and even housewives, everyone wanted to leave their mark on the mirror wall. Even Buddhist monks who lived there after the reign of King Cassiope got in on the action and wrote about love, loss, irony, and philosophy. In fact, there are over 1,500 different poems and verses written along the length of the mirror wall, and guess what? Most of them are addressed to the beautiful ladies on the frescoes. It's like these men couldn't get enough of them. Some of the poems were even written by jealous women who envied the beauty of the fresco women. Talk about drama. But don't get too excited about adding your own scribbles to the wall, my friend. Tourists aren't allowed to write on the mirror wall anymore to protect the original writings and maintain their authenticity. The water gardens. Now let's talk about something else that's just as cool. The water gardens. These bad boys were the bomb.com back in the day. They were located at the very top of the rock, covering the entire summit, and included the royal palace and other park areas built for the royals. And get this, the water gardens were built over 1,500 years ago. To build the palace, they used wood instead of stone because it was just too darn hard to carry tons of stone up a 200-meter elevation. And while the palace eventually crumbled to the forces of nature, the water structure, like fountains and pools, still remained standing. But what's even more impressive is the fact that these gardens of Sigiriya are some of the oldest landscape gardens in the world. In the entire city, there were 3 distinct gardens, all linked by some form of hydraulic underground water system. Talk about sophisticated. But you won't believe what's hiding under the giant rock. The terrace gardens at the summit of the rock and the water gardens on the forest floor surrounding Sigiriya are like nothing you've ever seen before. These gardens are so fancy they even have water all around them, and they're connected to the 3 main city precincts using sophisticated surface and subsurface water blades. It's like they're straight out of a fairy tale. And get this, they're actually one of the oldest surviving models of such gardens ever built in the world. Most of the fountains in these gardens still function unautomated and are powered by pre-existing underground systems. I mean, how cool is that? The water gardens even have these small islands with summer palaces built on them, specifically made for the royals in the king's court. Talk about fancy schmancy. And don't even get me started on the boulder gardens. Sure, they look aesthetic and all, but they served a strategic purpose too. Back in the day, they were used to push off rocks from the side of the hill during an enemy attack. Now that's what I call making the most of your resources. The terrace gardens. But wait, there's more. The terrace gardens, formed using the natural rock formation at the base of the hill, spread out at the base and opened up a pathway leading up to the staircase on the side of the rock. And let me tell you, the lion staircase is one of the most significant features of Sigiriya. It's got 2 large lion ports with an ascending stairway that leads to the summit of Sigiriya. Back in the day, the staircase even passed right through the open jaws of a massive lion's head. Sadly, it collapsed over time, but it would have been something to behold if it was still there. Return of the King. But the city of Sigiriya wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. There was some serious drama going on behind the scenes. King Cassiope spent his 22-year reign building up the city to its revered glory, but little did he know, war was brewing. Moggallana, the legitimate heir to the throne of Sri Lanka, fled to India, but returned with a massive army to reclaim his father's throne. That's when things really started to heat up. During the final battle, Cassiope made a strategic change in course amid-battle, but his army interpreted it as a retreat, resulting in the entire army retreating themselves and abandoning the king. In the end, Moggallana's forces overtook Sigiriya and captured Cassiope, who, as a proud king, would rather die than be captured. He took his own dagger and slit his throat. Talk about dramatic. After all that, Moggallana ruled over Sri Lanka and returned the nation's capital back to Anuradhapura, converting the palace city of Sigiriya into Buddhist monasteries. Fast forward to the 1890s, when some brave archaeologists decided to venture into Sigiriya, and thank goodness they did, because we now have extensive texts on the palace city's past and present states. And let me tell you, the restoration efforts were no joke. Cultural restoration and preservation specialist Luciano Morenzi had to work his magic on the vandalized frescoes, giving them a sort of facelift that would make even the Kardashians envious. Now I know what you're thinking. Bro, this sounds interesting and all, but what's so special about Sigiriya? Well, my dear friend, let me tell you. The UNESCO-listed World Heritage Site is a prime example of ancient urban planning at its finest. It speaks to the ingenuity of humans back in the day, when they didn't have fancy schmancy construction equipment. King of Patricide. King Cassiope is also known by the title King of Patricide. Yikes! He's credited with building Sigiriya, but hold on to your hats because experts believe the site has been occupied during much older times. We're talking about evidence of early human habitation dating back to the Mesolithic period. That's some 5,000 years ago, and if that's not enough, there's evidence of early Buddhist monasteries and settlements dating back to the 3rd century BC, way before King Cassiope's time. So was King Cassiope the art genius of his time? Or did he get some divine intervention from the gods? Well, that's for you to decide. But one thing's for sure. Sigiriya sees over 1 million visitors each year, and it's not hard to see why. The architecture, the history, the mystery, it's all there waiting to be discovered.